Anybody? Anybody? Okay, so let's just start off again then. We're going to draw a line. We'll start at 0, 0. And I'm going to turn ortho on, so F8, or the ortho down in the bottom. And we'll do 20 units for now. We'll do 10 units up, 20 units back to the left, and then close or 10 units back down to 0, 0. Then you can hit escape or enter to end the command. So you'll have a rectangle 20 by 10. Good so far? So let's just say we want to move that whole thing as a whole. So we're going to start and we'll do a window from the bottom right to the upper left. Type in M for move, or you have the icon up at the top, or you can simply type MOVE. And then we're going to move it 10 units to the right. So simply type 10. My ortho's still on, so it's still going to only move it in one direction. It's not going to be able to move it both the X and Y axis at the same time. Okay? So from there, now we are going to copy this whole thing. So if I highlight the entire box yet again. Okay, that's fine. So we'll go ahead and do the copy command. So the shortcut is CO. And then again, we will pick a point and we will copy it over. We're going to go 30 just to make sure we get completely past it. Then you can hit spacebar escape, so it'll end the command. And then let's say that box is too big for the time being. Do you need me to slow down some more?
Yeah.
Where are we at? You have a rectangle?
No, I'm trying to do the right. Yeah.
Okay, so line.
And then 20 by 10?
Yes. Make sure your ortho's on so that it'll stay as a 90 degree. F8, that's correct. Maybe I should have a quiz. I don't want to grade a quiz though. That's the only problem. Do we have a rectangle now?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move it.
We're gonna copy it?
No, move it first.
Oh.
Yep. So highlight the whole, all the rectangle, and move it to the,
Hold on, for some reason.
So select everything.
I didn't do the whole rectangle.
So you simply draw another line. So does it look like this? Where it has an open end. So you can simply draw another line. And if you pick the corner, it'll snap to the endpoint.
Oh.
And you can see, and then you could pick the second corner and it'll snap to that endpoint. And you'll be able to complete the rectangle.
Go over that one more time because I'm stuck. I'm down here in the corner, but I can't expand like that for some reason.
So hit escape a bunch of times to get out any command you're in, just in case.
Okay, cool.
And then, so if you do line, L enter, or line enter, whatever. So if you just get close to the upper left-hand corner, and if you got to use the wheel mouse to zoom in, you can. So if you're like way out here and you can't see it, you got to zoom in. You just use the wheel on the mouse to zoom in. And then you get close, you'll see the little, you see the little, how it turns green with the little green box? You getting that?
No, that's after hitting. I cleared everything with escape. I'm going back to F8, right?
You need to have F8 on, yeah.
Okay.
Or ortho.
Ortho. I'm clicking.
No, it was the base. It should be 20.
I don't see that.
20 by 10. Yeah, I think you got it backwards.
So is your O snap on? You could go from the bottom corner too. You could come down here and go up. It's not going to make a difference for this part of the exercise. Does everybody have a rectangle now?
Do we need to start at 0, 0?
Yes, but no.
I can move it, right?
You can move it.
The whole thing, so highlight the whole thing and then 0, 0, and then it'll move.
No, you'd have to move it and do the at 0, 0, so that it'll move to 0, 0.
So do the move,
We just expand the whole.
highlight it.
I've got that.
It doesn't matter for now. Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's fine. As long as you have a 20 by 10 square, a rectangle. So now we're going to move it, and we're going to move it 10 units to the right. So you move it away from the 0 and X and Y axis.
Okay, that's
Move 10 units to the right.
Then we're going to copy this whole thing. So CO or copy, or it's up here. Then window over the whole thing.
Okay.
Hit enter after selecting your objects. Select the base point. Then move your mouse towards the right so that you see it kind of moving to the right. Then we're going to go 30 units. Then you can hit escape and it'll end the command.
Then copy, right?
Copy.
Copy and 10, you said 10?
30.
30.
So let's say the client came back and said, no, that is too big. I want it only to be a 10 by 10 box. So we're going to do stretch. So it's S. And then you're going to highlight just the right side. So you're going to have to do a window or the green box. So you're going to highlight those. Then you're going to hit enter spacebar. Have a pick point somewhere. Move your mouse back towards the left so you'll see it start to stretch and get smaller. Type 10. And it'll make, now you have a 10 by 10 box next to your 20 by 10 box.
Yep. So when you when you want to move it, right, and you select it, you put 10, and then you move your mouse to whatever position you want to shorten it, you have to put 10 again?
So it's when you're reading the command bar, so if we're moving it, right, the first thing is select your objects, right? After I've selected, if I type 10, it's actually going to jump to a point in space. So you see how it jumped to a point in space?
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm doing.
yeah, so you don't actually need to do that because you can just simply pick the base point that you need.
Okay.
If you're referencing a point that is specific to the drawing, then you could actually enter like 13,2 and it'll start your base point at 13,2. You get what I'm saying?
But it's not set until you hit the enter.
Yeah, so once I pick my base point, now it's asking for the displacement. So you're giving it the units that you want to displace it or move it. So that's when you would hit 10 to move it 10.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when you're hitting the initial 10, you're actually hitting 10. It's referencing the base point. It's not referencing the movement.
So I just leave my mouse or the
Yeah, so
and the base.
yeah, like I said, you don't necessarily have to have a specific point because we know the distance that we're moving it.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't know the distance that you're moving it, then your base point makes, you have to do it a little bit more rigorously, I guess.
When I punched in 30, right?
Yep.
And so it didn't automatically go to 30. It's clocking it, right? But how do I get, it's like I'm almost at 30, I'm at 29, 0.766.
So are you just using the mouse?
Yeah.
So
You doing that?
no. So you gotta remember, AutoCAD is all about precision, 100%. I mean, whatever you click, it's gonna be to whatever units you set. Right now, I think it's to the 4th decimal point, right? Units. Yeah. So right now, the precision is automatically set to the 4th decimal point. So if you have it and you move it 29.6667, it's gonna be 29.60. It's not gonna read 30. You get what I'm saying? If you had your snaps on, so you snap to the grid, then it's gonna only move at those increments. But right now we don't have the snap on, because I'm trying to get you guys to type everything in rather than rely on your snaps. Because a lot of times if you rely on the snaps, you may think that your snap's set to 5 and it's actually set to 6, and it can screw everything up. You know, so
Just take it off.
I hardly draw with the snap on, especially once you get into modifying stuff. In the initial layout and stuff, you may have your snaps on, and it also just depends on what you're drawing. Like, you know, in my field, our tolerance is a 1/16 of an inch, so it's pretty small. So to set a snap to 1/16 of an inch, like, it really, it's just kind of counterproductive. So, I mean, if you want to draw with the snap on, just make sure that you are setting your grids to be the tolerance that you want. Right now, we're just using whole numbers, doing 10, 20, 30, and just because it's easier for my brain to remember those numbers than it is the 5 foot. 17.8, you know what I mean? Like, I can't compute that right now, so it's just a lot easier. Once we get into drawing the stuff, there is going to be those decimal points. Yeah. So, like, your first assignment and stuff's going to have decimal points that you're going to have to use.
Which is the same thing you just did.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want you to, but you got to remember, AutoCAD's all about precision. So if you move it 12.3, it's going to be 12.3. It's not going to go to 12. It's not going to know you want it to go to 12, you know.
So now I get you. You said when you started at 0, 0.
Yeah, exactly. It's just easier for.
My measurement's different from yours.
It's gonna so the measurement of the box is not gonna be different, but its relationship in space is.
Yeah.
You know, remember when we did in the first one when I do properties? Oh, it's way over here. Hi. And I select this one, and it gives me all kinds of different information down here for the geometry. So if you did yours, you would read all kinds of different numbers, and you'll probably have a bunch of decimal points.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying it's just a lot easier and cleaner to learn when you're starting at 0, 0. Yeah, I mean, in the real world, you hardly start at 0, 0. You know, I mean, you may have a base point.
That's gonna be like the line of the lot or whatever.
Yeah, but the other thing is the 0, 0 is also gonna be good for when you start x-reffing. It's hard to say. X-reffing things into other drawings, because when you x-ref something, when you first bring it in, it's gonna be based off of 0, 0 always. So when you bring it in, if 0, 0 on, you know, let's just say, for instance, you have a finished floor plan in this room, right? This one's easy because it's all carpet, right? But if you do the finished floor plan in this room and you do the ceiling plan in this room, you always want the reference point to start at 0, 0. So that way when you modify things and you have x-refs overlaid on each other, like if this wall came in 12 inches, then I know I have to adjust my finished floor plan and my ceiling plan 12 inches, but I have that floor plan x-refed in there so that's why it's
easier.
It is easier to start kind of at 0, 0 to start. Yeah, exactly. When you start getting layers and layers and layers of drawings, which you will, then that's when you're gonna want to start at 0, 0. The other thing is for blocks and stuff, because if you start at 0, 0, most likely your insertion point's gonna be with that block. If you start off at 100 somewhere out there, your insertion point's gonna be way over here, and you'll see it becomes frustrating when you try to move them or you stretch them. You're stretching a wall and your block doesn't move because the starting point's way over there. So it's just kind of a good habit to start your drawings at 0, 0 at some point. You know, to have a reference or referencing to 0, 0, because that's a common point in every single drawing you're ever gonna have. It's always gonna have 0, 0. You can always move it. You can actually move the UCS, but you don't have to.
Easy to remember too.
Yeah. So like sometimes when you're doing site plans and stuff, like on big jobs, you may move the UCS to be like the bottom left corner of the property line versus having it at 0, 0. And that may not be, it gets really complicated. So,
I get it.
but, okay, so continuing on, we're going to take that 10 by 10 box and we're going to rotate it. So we're going to highlight the entire thing, and then we type in RO or type in rotate. And then my ortho's still on, so it's only going to go 90, 180, 270, 360. So I'm just going to go 90. So I can simply just move my mouse, call it north, or the positive Y direction. And click, and bam, it's rotated. So remember that we could also rotate and copy at the same time. So I'm going to highlight that guy again. I'm going to have my base point start in the lower right-hand corner of that box.
How many units were moving it up?
No, I just rotated it actually. Yeah. So if I start in the bottom right-hand corner, and then remember that up here I could simply click this button, or I could type in the letter C. So the blue highlighted letters are the ones that are the hotkeys basically. So if I copy, so you can see now that my box is staying there as I'm having another one come out. So I'm going to rotate this one 180 degrees, so I can type 180, enter, and it'll rotate a copy of that square 180 degrees. One more time. We'll go back to the first one. So rotate, select the entire square, pick the upper right hand corner, and then go. I picked a different corner that time. Oh well. Then we're gonna rotate that one 180 degrees, and then you should have a box that looks like that. And then we're gonna simply copy rotate now. So you can hit enter or spacebar, and it'll repeat the command. Select my object, pick the lower left hand corner, click on the word copy, or simply type C, and 180. So yours maybe look a little different because the first time I picked the opposite corner, but it's fine. So the next thing that we kind of looked at was mirroring. So we're going to take the bottom only, the bottom square, and MI.
On mirror, huh?
Then we're going to click the midpoint of the upper and click the other midpoint of the upper one so that it mirrors across. No, I want to leave this source object, so I'll just simply hit enter. And now we have a series of 3 boxes.
I got lost when we should have copied one that was already rotated once.
Okay, so rotate,
Yeah.
select your objects, pick your bottom left corner of the box for your base point. So after you select the object, you get a spacebar so that it goes into select the base point. So if I select the base point here, now it's right here, it says copy, or I can simply type C.
So once I select the base point,
After you select the base point, yeah.
and then it's on rotating mode right now.
Yeah, so now click on the word copy or simply type C.
Yeah.
And then you'll see that it actually reacts different. Instead of rotating it, you can still see your source object there.
Yeah.
So, and then do 180 degrees, so 180. And then we're going to mirror
Just that one box?
just the bottom box.
Yeah, I messed mirrored both of them.
That's fine.
All right.
As long as you're mirroring, that's all good.
Okay. All right, looks good to me. Yeah, I thought you highlighted the second line, because that's what I did. I put it under window too. That you're not doing that, are you?
You could do the window or the crossing. The window's a little easier in this case, but yeah.
Did the window.
Or sorry, crossing's a little easier in this case. Yeah.
Rotate, select the base point, and then copy. Enter. What the heck?
I'm drawing right now. I'm drawing everything with ortho on just for the time being, just because it's gonna keep everything square and just makes your life a lot easier right now. We're not gonna do anything crazy with any type of crazy angles. There may be a couple here and there that I'll throw in, just so you have to rotate a line to get it.
Perfect.
All right. So the next thing we did was, well, we trimmed and we did fillets and arrays. So in order to trim, we're gonna have to draw another line. So we're gonna draw a line on your top box from center point or midpoint to midpoint. So like that. So again, make sure your O-snap's on. This little triangle is the midpoint. If you don't have the midpoint on, you could right click on the bottom of the little blue little box down here. Oh, you guys can't see that probably, huh? In the back. Let's do this. So right here is your O-snap, in case you forgot where it was. So if I right click here, you can see the check marks that have everything that I have on right now. So the midpoint needs to be on for this part right here. And it should be, because when we mirrored for the midpoint.
So we're doing a line right in the middle.
Yep.
Okay.
And then, so now we're to trim. And I want to trim off to that center line that I just drew. So I'm going to select that as my trimming object. Then I'm going to hit enter or spacebar. Then I'm going to select the bottom half of the upper square on both sides. So basically now I have a 10 by 5 rectangle floating out in space.
I hit the left side. It trimmed the left. I went to the right side. It didn't trim the right side.
Your line is probably not extended all the way to the other line. So if it's like this, if you have a line that looks like, oh, here. You have a line that looks like that and you go to trim, it's not going to trim.
No, the line's all the way to it.
So here, let's do this. So we're going to do the opposite of trim. We're going to do extend. So type in EX. Then select your right line. And most of you guys will want to do this, but just for clarity. So you're going to select the right line, this one here, after I type in, and then I'm at spacebar. Then I'm going to select that little line in the middle. And it'll jump all the way over there. So now I know it's touching, because I just extended it so that it'll touch. And then you could try the trim command, and it should trim it off. Anybody having trouble with trim?
Yeah, it's selecting both lines. So it's selecting the top and the bottom.
So let's go ahead and create another line from the midpoint of that horizontal line that we just drew back down. So it's five. It should be 5 units to the midpoint of the other. Then we're gonna move into the fillet command. So it's F, or here's fillet. So remember that your radius is set to automatically to 0. So to change the radius, you could click the word radius in the command bar or type R. Let's just do 1 for now. So that's going to change the radius of my fillet to be 1.
Just one enter.
Yeah. And then we want to pick the left side of the bottom one, and then anywhere on the other there, so that it'll create the radius there. Just another way to trim off the objects too. And then we're going to do the opposite for the top of that line to the right side.
If it's selecting lines again, I'm missing the command, right?
Yeah, because you probably, I would just escape all the way out of everything first. So trim, select the center one, select no, the other center, the horizontal center. Yep. You don't have to be right on it. Yeah. So hit enter. Now pick the left lower. No, this one. This lower.
Oh,
Click there, and then click that one. That one. Yeah, you can click it unless you have two lines there.
oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Um,
So then enter,
Then it's fillet, so it'll be,
fill it,
and then you remember your radius is set to 0 already, so you
Yeah.
can change your radius.
it's already one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hit enter, and then now you want to pick this point here,
This one
and
and
then
this
that
one.
one. Yep. And then pick the top towards the top of that one. So now fillet automatically ends the command after you've
So
done it. So
then-
now you have to hit spacebar again, and it'll automatically do the last command you just did.
So then now we go back to.
And your
the-
radius is already set to 1, because that's your last radius. So you're gonna pick that
this
one and that
this
one. Yep.
Cool.
So right now I got a hole in my wall. So if we do fill it one more time, and I simply change my radius back to 0, you could pick. It doesn't matter which one you pick first, just as long as you pick the 2 lines, basically to enclose the shape. So chamfer use is also similar to, this command, but instead of a radius, it's going to give you an angle. So everyone go to chamfer. I think it's what, CH? CHA, yeah. So in here, now instead of a radius, you're going to set a distance. So you have 2 distances. So remember that distance 1 and 2 do matter which one you pick first and second. So for this instance, we're going to go ahead and we're going to type in D for distance. And then I'm going to do distance 1 as 1. And then,
Just lick it too, right?
I'm sorry?
We can just lick it on the.
Yes, yeah. And then for distance 2, I'm going to do 2. Just so we kind of get a different angle. So then you want to pick the vertical line first,
Well,
and then pick the horizontal line.
doesn't matter where you lick the first line? Doesn't it have to be a midpoint?
No, as long as you pick,
You click it.
as long as you pick it in that order, because if you pick it in the opposite order, it's actually going to change the angle. So the distance that you're actually creating in this is the distance from the corner. So for instance, this is 1, this is 2. So that's the distance you're actually typing. So if you do have to have an absolute measurement of something, you know, if you have to have it 62.3897 inches or whatever from that corner, you could actually type that in. And that's what it's doing. It's referencing the corner that they meet. And even if they don't meet and you do chamfer, it'll actually still fill in the spot. So you don't necessarily have to have them meeting. But what it's going to do is it's going to do the distance from where they would meet if they eventually met. So, for instance, if we took 2 lines that are parallel to each other. Oops. Come on. And we tried to chamfer it. It's probably going to do something really weird. Yeah, it won't even let me because they're parallel. You could fillet these 2 and it'll actually create the radius, the smallest radius, basically, like I said before, to create the racetrack. Basically, so.
Oh.
But if we had something like that, and we wanted to chamfer those two together, it ought to still be able to do it. Yeah. See? So it's actually taking this point, it's sending this all the way over here, and sending this one all the way over here to where they meet. And then it's taking the measurement of, because I clicked the horizontal one first, it's the distance of 1 and then distance of 2. So, oops. This dimension should be 2. If I pick it, no, it's not. Is it the distance? Why is it not? What the? That's confusing. Yeah. I don't know why it's not. There we go. This is the one I want. Wow. So I'm wrong. No. Oh, because it actually connects way out there. That's why. So it is, yeah. Because it's connecting way out there. That's why. So this is 2.
If for some reason
And
it's
this
not
is 1.
selecting the whole line, it stopped right before the corner.
What do you mean? It's sorry.
The first line, the first point that we have to pick to chamfer it,
Yeah.
it's not going all the way through. And it was a single line. So, chamfer is on. Select the first line. See? It doesn't select it.
So you actually have another line on here.
So then undo.
Well, you can simply highlight it. So if you pick the smaller line here, I'll see 2 lines. Pick the line. You got a couple.
Oh, there it is.
So now if you do chamfer, it'll actually fill in the gap.
Oh, so I just select the 2 lines.
Yeah.
First line,
Yep.
second line,
Because your distance is set to 0, it's gonna automatically.
fill it in.
Yeah. So if you do chamfer again and you set the distance to something different.
So select the first line and then select the distance to 1, which is already 1, right?
Yeah. Okay, so distance 2, so hit 1 again. That's what it was doing. Your second one. That's why it's drawing the line. Yeah. It was drawing a 1-inch line.
Yeah.
Daniel, check this out for a minute, would you? I'm on a problem here. How do we get this to, exactly, what's the real trick right here? This is what I did, I had both these boxes,
Okay.
mirror and bow, I shouldn't have done it,
No, you're fine.
yeah?
Yeah.
Now, how do I do to keep the fillet? Exactly, fillet, I got fillet, fillet from this object, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Now, which object do you want to fill it to?
actually,
So, if you pick this one, it'll connect us. If you pick that one, it's gonna create the big radius there.
so if I pick right here,
See how it's connecting the big radius? There you go.
so I do that one.
Yep.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay.
So the last thing we kind of did was an array. So first thing we want to do is we want to polyline edit, or PE, and we're gonna select one of the lines here, one of the lower boxes. Doesn't matter which box, just pick a box. It's gonna ask, do you want to turn it to a polyline? Yes, we do. And then we want to join, and then we want to pick the other 3 and hit enter, and then hit enter again, so that now it's a polyline. The only reason is because it's a lot easier to array a polyline or a closed object than it is a series. So if I click array, you can see it throws up the series of columns and rows. So again, you're going to have columns here. Right now it's 4, so columns are reading left to right, rows are going to read top to, or bottom to top. So if I go 5, it's going to grow. And then if I hit the rows, I do 4, it can grow. The same thing can be done if I select the object and I use the arrow on the farthest right object. We could simply add. Could add more here. And then if I use these arrows, these adjust the spacing of the array itself. And then if I want to do both, I could just take this one way out here so that you could, oh, it looks like music or something. Do we do any more down here? Offset. So let's go ahead and we're gonna polyline edit our funky object too. So PE, select any line on that object. Yes, you want to turn it into a polyline, and then you want to hit enter and then select the rest of the lines on that functified object. Hit enter twice, and if you click on one segment, it should highlight the whole thing. So let's say this is the shape of my building, or anything. It could be a piece of structural steel, could be anything. Could be a landscape item that you're offsetting to create a curb or something like that. So let's just say you want to offset it to show a thickness, and we're just going to do 0.5 just because of how small our object is. So depending on where your mouse actually is going to depend if it offsets inwards or outwards. For us, we're going to go to the inside. So as you can see, even with the radius here, it actually is creating a smaller radius that fits so that this distance from here to here is the same as the distance from here to here. So offset actually offsets every part of the object equally, and it's not going to adjust. And then here, because of the inside corner, it's actually creating a larger radius. The chamfer, it created a smaller space here, but this distance here is still 0.5, as well as this distance and this distance, etc., etc., etc.
Can you do it again?
Yeah. So do you have the polyline?
Yes.
Okay. So if I simply offsets here, it's this funky looking shape, or the shortcut is O. So it's asking you first now the distance you want to do. So you can either type an absolute value. You could actually have a pick point to a pick point, and it's actually going to tell you now when you offset anything, it's going to offset that distance. So it's probably, yeah, a lot larger.
So we pick the base.
So no, but for this instance, I want to offset by an absolute value. So I'm going to actually type in 0.5.
Once we have the.
Once you've selected the polyline.
So we selected the first one on the polyline.
So do you have a polyline now?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you offset and then you type in, so you don't have to have anything selected when you type in offset.
Right.
And then you type in the distance. So it's asking you for the distance that you want to offset. So in this case, like I said, we do 0.5. And then you hit enter. So now it's going to ask you to select the objects to offset. So now we'll click the polyline, and we're going to click inside of the polyline.
It selected a point. I selected that point.
Let's see, you're on PT1. So click on something here. Yeah, so we want to do PE, P edit. So PE. Or polyline edit. Yep.
Oh,
So P edit, PE. So select on asking you want to turn the poll on. Yes, we do. So you can hit space bar. Then you want to join, and you want to select the rest of
The rest.
all of it. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So we're actually gonna do those two.
So then I can just select that.
Yeah, select that. Select the radius.
that.
Now hit enter. Hit enter again. Now if you select on the object, still just pick it. Now.
Now it's a whole. Now it's
Yeah.
a whole.
So now if you do offset,
It's O. O.
or it's this guy right here.
One.
This one
I
right
don't know what that, how to describe that.
here. Yeah.
And then, so it's gonna ask you for a distance, so you can do 0.5. And then now you wanna pick on the inside.
Then that's the location.
Now pick the line. Yeah. Now pick
You
to
can
the
do
inside.
either or, but I usually just put, okay.
Okay.
So, Francisco, your best, fill it, enter, and then you can put, on.
So does everybody have something similar to this? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay. So that, well, we did some arcs and stuff too, but that basically brings us up to speed with what we kind of did last week. Just a lot faster pace, and we'll continue to review some of the stuff. I'll try to keep review. Like I said, practice makes perfect. At least something close. So basically, there's 3 more things in the draw command. There's a rectangle, which I know I've been making you guys draw rectangles line by line by line, but it's just to learn. So that's going to be the next. So we're just going to move off to the right. I don't care. You could delete everything. You could leave it. It doesn't matter. It's up to you guys. So for a rectangle, there's multiple ways to do it. It's up here. REC or rectang, like record REC will bring up the command. So just like a lot of the other draw commands, it's going to ask you for your first base point. So for, let's see, if I go to 100, no, we're still in the way. So I'm going to start mine at 150, 0.
You typed REC, yeah?
REC, like record, yeah. Or it's also up here at the top. It's
Up here at the top.
this one here. Next to the arc, it's a smaller button next to arc.
Okay, I see it.
So 150 and 0. So as you can see now, it's creating an actual rectangle based on my second point. So there's 2 different ways that we could do this. Well, there's a couple different ways, I guess. The most common way, and the way that I kind of learned, is by typing the @ symbol, and then you're going to type the length, which is the x, which you could do positive or negative, and then comma, and then it'll be the y direction. So the @ symbol, which is shift 2, and then we're going to do 20, comma, 10.
Where's the axis at?
I'm sorry?
The axis is it?
No. So the start point was at, for me, it was 150, 0.
Where's specified point? 150.
Yeah, 150, comma 0. So that'll give you your first base point.
I just put 150.
Yeah.
It's gone.
I did mine, the whole screen blacked out, is that right? No more grid.
There we go.
Did you?
The rectangle's there, but there's no more grid.
So
I clicked in 20, comma 10.
so you probably hit F7 at one point. Hit F7 on the function keys.
Okay.
Did your grid come back?
No.
So yours just zoomed way in then.
Okay.
So it's wheel out
What's the measurements you got?
20 10, 20 wide, 10 high. So let's do that again. Okay, so REC, the base point is 150, 0. And then it's asking, so I can simply click a point wherever, and it's just going to give you, I mean, you can see there, it's giving me 56, 42.284, blah, blah, which, like I said, I just want to get you guys used to being more precise. So we're going to type in the @ symbol, which is Shift 2. So just like, you know, when you hashtag or whatever, you want to, it's the @ symbol. What is it? A handle, right? Is that what they call it? Handle. So the @ symbol, and then we're gonna do 20. So remember the first is gonna be your X. So 20 on the X and 10. So 20 comma, because comma will bring you into the next coordinate. 10. So it's a lot faster to draw a rectangle like that than it is to draw a point.
What? Okay. Where is it? Oh, it's right there.
Cool. So this rectangle acts as a polyline now. So remember last time when we drew the polyline, we made a polyline? We just did that with the funky object too. So if we were to offset and it's still set to 0.5 and I go in and out, it's going to act just like the polyline does. I'm just kind of showing you don't have to necessarily, but if offset 0.5, and I'm just showing you that it's like it is a polyline actually. It's not like a series of lines. It's one polyline instead of a segment. But just like a polyline, I could take it and I could explode it, which is up here, or the shortcut is X. And then now it's a segment. It's 4 segments so that they act independently. So basically a rectangle, you create a polyline. So it's the same thing as drawing, using the polyline to draw it, or to actually draw the 4 lines and p-edit them to make them a polyline. So same thing. So a rectangle. You can rotate the rectangle. You could copy the rectangle. You can do whatever you want. It's just like a line, just like a polyline. You can still modify it in multiple ways. You could array it if you wanted to. So the other one, which is like a little more complex, which is the ellipse. So an ellipse is similar to a circle, except for it has 2 radii instead of 1. So for this instance, I'm not even going to give any dimensions. Just want to show you the kind of shape that you create, kind of like an egg. Anybody not know what an ellipse is in geometry terms? Okay. So if we do an ellipse, I could specify the center, and then you're actually creating from the center point out to, God, I guess it's a chord. All right. And then you're selecting the second one. So the distance that you're doing is, well, it's not technically a radius, but yeah, because it has 2 center points. So I'm not sure exactly what. It's like I guess it is a radius and a radius. Yeah. So you're able to create kind of a more complex shape there. So it's just like everything else. It does act really funny when you offset it. So you notice this has 4 points, right? That I could adjust. But now this one, it actually has 7,000 points on there. So when you actually offset an ellipse, it becomes a spline. So a spline is something that does not necessarily have a specific dimension to it, because it's a series of curves. So there's multiple radii with the series. So you can see that this one I could adjust here with the 4 points, right? I can make it bigger, make it smaller. But when you offset an ellipse, you actually have to do multiple commands to get it back to be that size, and basically you're redrawing the entire thing to be a smaller version of that
Getting
ellipse.
it from the arc or the circle, the ellipse.
I'm sorry?
How are you manipulating that circle?
So it has the control points. So if I highlight the ellipse, and then you see that there's actual control points. There's four points on the perimeter of it, and there's also the center point.
Right.
So if I pick this one, I could actually, yeah. And then if I were to type a dimension, it's actually going to change. It's not going to move that dimension, that distance, as much as it's actually going to change the dimension from here to there to be the dimension you type in. So if I do, say, 15, right? The dimension from here to here is 15. It's not moving it 15, it's using the absolute value. You're actually just changing that radius. Create like a basketball. Like a basketball. With a CBS symbol. So, ellipses aren't, I don't know, they're not fun to use because they don't offset and modify like all the other stuff does. I don't know why it doesn't. I don't know. You would think that they could be able to create just offset it, so just create a smaller one, but it doesn't. So, any questions? Rectangles, ellipses. So one of the other things that we could kind of get into. So with the rectangle, if we do the properties, should actually show you, yeah, here it is here. So with a polyline or an enclosed polyline or something, it's actually going to show you the area. So for instance, if you had to calculate area for something for cost benefit, or if you're trying to price something out and you need to know how many square feet of carpet to order, then you could actually use the area. There's another way to do it by doing area, typing the word area, and you could actually pick the box, or you could select a full box around it, which we could get that into that later once we start doing the house.
Where would you find the area?
So if you type PR for properties, then it's like I said, it gives you all kinds of different information on this. So it's telling you the vertex, all that kind of stuff. And then at the bottom where it says area and it has length and area, yeah. So
that's the area. So
that's the area, yeah. So you see, if I take this and I stretch it to 5, the area is going to change. It's going to grow. So the last one in the draw command is hatch. So if everybody clicks this little guy right here, or you could type H, I think you can still type BH. Yeah. So you see that your ribbon actually changes now. So it's kind of the first time this has happened, right? So it's just giving you more information, because what a hatch does is, so if you have an object like this, right? And you want to come in and actually, let's just say you want to color this in, right? So if I wanted to draw a bunch of lines in here, and usually you're using that for like material properties, or if you're trying to like render a floor plan or something, you're gonna put it, for instance, if you had the T-bar grid like this, you could hatch the whole ceiling and just show that the T-bar. It's not the proper way to do it, but for like a presentation wise, it goes miles, right? It's just way faster than sitting there and trying to figure out the exact thing. So what hatch is, it's like picture coloring in the lines, right? So if you don't have an enclosed object, it doesn't have to be a polyline. It's a lot easier when it is a polyline, but it doesn't have to be a polyline. So right now it's saying pick an internal point. So we're just going to pick our most recent, the rectangle that we just did. So if we pick that guy, so you can see up here that it has a bunch of different stuff going on right here, right? So you have solid, angle, and then these are AN, SI, and these have to do with the standards of drafting that were created like in the 70s or something like that. Then you have the pattern here, so solid, gradient, whatever. Right now we're just using a pattern. The layer, we'll just leave it on by layer for now. Background is fine. Angle, we'll just leave it at 0. So right now you can see that I'm actually on a lined hatch. So basically it's a series of 45-degree lines. But if you look at my box, it kind of looks like it's completely full. So what we could do is we could actually come over here and we could change the scale of the hatch. So if, for instance, we just do 4. And then you can see now that it actually, you could actually read the angled lines on my hatch now. If you want to go bigger, you could do 8. And now you can see it even more. So one thing to note that there's a box over here that's already pre-checked, and it reads associative. What that means is it's actually associating that hatch to that boundary. So if I modify that boundary, the hatch is going to change with it. If I were to uncheck it like that, the hatch is going to come in as its own thing, and it's not going to actually be affected by the object. So I'm going to show you both instances. So, yes?
Pick eternal point.
Yep. So pick the inside of that new rectangle that we drew that's 20 by 10.
Just click on it.
Click in it.
All right.
Yep. And then it should look like it's almost filled.
It's all white.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Good, huh?
yeah. And then, well, it just, I mean, like I said, I think there's like 42 different hatch patterns that we could use.
Well, I picked on the ANS 131.
Yeah. So let's goof off. Let's pick we'll pick the concrete. So now it disappeared. Well, my scale's too big, so let's go to 1. Now I got a series of diamond or triangles and dots. That represents concrete in the drawing world.
So you're entering 1 in there?
No, in the scale, you see where over here on the right, this is the scale. Looks like the scale.
Right.
Looks like the scale command. Same thing, right? So right now it's set to 1.
Okay, set 1 to 0, 0, 0. Yeah, I see it.
So, but that's if you're using concrete. So you got to understand that each one of these is going to show up slightly different based on your scale.
Okay.
The first 5, 6, all the
Okay. I've not been able to manipulate this though.
because did you exit out of the command already?
No, still there. Pick an eternal point. I still got the white box.
So after you've picked the internal point, hit spacebar.
Space bar. All right. And now it goes out of the. I got a blue box. With
Okay, so if I hatch,
that's it.
and I pick an internal point,
Okay, that's hatch. Okay.
and then now yours looks like this, right?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like that
So
probably,
pretty
right?
close to it,
Right?
yeah. Yeah.
So if you're hovering over these boxes up here on the left, does it change? You don't have to click on it. Even if you just hover over it, it'll change for you.
See, yeah. Okay.
You can hit the arrow.
Yeah. I got this.
Could drag it all the way down so you can see a bunch. You can see there's a bunch in here. You can actually go on websites and find custom-made hatches. Created my own for wood grain just because it's the most common thing we have to use. So we're doing laminates.
Do it? Wood grain
Yeah,
at your shop?
yeah.
Interesting.
So there's a bunch of different ones. So let's just go ahead and let's use 137. Or I guess it's just 37, right? ANSI 37. So again, and then I want you guys to scale it up to, we'll do 5. Or maybe more. I guess we'll do 10. There we go. All right. So does everybody have something that looks similar to this?
Mine's really small though. How did you get to where
So-
did you set the size?
Over here on the right side of the panel?
Right. Set origin?
No. So just to the left of that,
Okay. Hatch print.
it says 1.000 right now. Yeah, click in that box and hit 10.
Okay. 10. Oh yeah.
So if you pick here, click this little this double arrow, and it's just ANSI 37. Cool. So if you hit enter, it'll actually end out of the command, and now you're back to your original ribbon toolbar. So remember what I said about it being associative to the rectangle. So if I take my rectangle, and we're gonna stretch my rectangle now. I'm gonna stretch to 10. Notice how the hatch went with it.
Stretch. To 10, right?
Why is that?
Because they have the associative hatch to it. So if we copy this down, 20, 20, and then we hatch it once more, but then I uncheck this point here. So you see where it says associative boundaries. So if I uncheck that, then I hit enter. Now, if I stretch it, it doesn't move with it.
You do that again?
Yeah, so I'll go back. So I just simply copied my box, right? I just took it down. I took it down 20, just trying to stay precise. We do a hatch again. Pick my center point, or pick the internal point, right? The other thing you could do right now is you could actually go up here and hit select, or type in S. Then I can select my object. If I don't want to go actually pick that point, if I know it's an enclosed polygon, I can select the object and it fills it back in. Then up here where it says associative, up on the top right, up here, if I uncheck that, right, and then I hit enter, now when I stretch the rectangle, it doesn't move with it. So, I mean, you want to try to use associative as much as you can, but yeah.
Mine turned completely gray.
It's completely gray.
I can't hit back the associative tab. Like it's gray now. I can't click on it.
It's gray? I'm confused.
How do you associate it again?
You can edit the hatch. That's what we do next.
Doesn't do anything, man.
Turn gray? Well, it's because are you in the hatch command? So you have to edit it. So if you right click, you hatch edit. Oh, that's gonna pop up there.
Well, you can't hatch anything. You can hatch that as
Why would it not? That's weird.
yeah, look at
That's really weird.
you can hatch
I don't
that.
ever use the ribs, so it's kind of hard. I'm always used to this. So that's the hard part. It's like it's associated right here. I guess once you unassociate, did you modify the rectangle and then undo?
No.
So I guess if it is unassociated, then you can't reassociate it.
I just press Control Z and then
It's reassociated again.
yeah.
Yeah. So once you unassociate, you can't reassociate. Yeah. So if you don't necessarily like this whole ribbon and everything, there's also a dialog box that you could bring up. So if I highlight the hatch and I hit hatch edit, it actually brings up, this is the old way everybody used to do it. And then here you can see we have various different types of hatches. I'm just showing you guys this. The ribbon is already up there, so every time you click on a hatch, the ribbon is going to pop up.
Where's hatch edit?
It's in the right click menu, so if I select the hatch and I right click, hatch edit is up there. Or if I just simply click on it, you're technically editing hatch when you're up in the top ribbon now. So if you have an object that looks like this and you try to hatch it, it's not going to work. So you got to remember the hatch. So basically what it's doing is when you click a point, it's shooting 1,000 arrays in all different directions, 360 degrees. And if one of those rays come back that it doesn't hit an endpoint, it's actually going to say we can't hatch this. So another problem that you may have is if you try to hatch something where you don't see the boundary. So even if, for instance, this is closed, this object here is closed, but if I come in here and I try to hatch it here, it may have trouble doing it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to it. But if for some reason it says it can't, simply just scroll out so you can see the entire enclosure and you can hatch again. So just like a polyline, you could explode hatch. So type X. Now you can see it's a series of lines.
Wow.
I don't know why you'd want to explode it, but I know people who do. So it just becomes really painful when you have to modify anything because now you got 10,000 lines instead of one. But just so you know, and if I edit this one to be whatever, concrete, right? Set it back to 1, and I explode this one. Yes, it's actually dots and little lines. So your hatch pattern actually still is a vector drawing, but it's like I said, it's a pattern. And then I think if I so you can see here, there's a fun YouTube video. Could show you how to create your own ones. Well, if they would skip the ads, I hate YouTube now. But it'll show you actually how to create it, and it's just actually using lists and stuff. We're not gonna get into that because that's like way down the road. But you can use splines, you can use arcs, you can use rectangles to create hatch, custom hatch patterns. So,
And that's just to put a pattern on.
yeah. So, for instance, like if we use, if you have basically, geez, if I could draw. Like a floor plan or something like that, right? And this is my door, whatever, right? So, for instance, you'll see when we do the presentation drawings, you'll just be hatching them solid. So, and all it does is it just shows, I don't know if there's no drawings in here. There's must be a set right there somewhere. But, so, you'll simply just color this in. They used to call it poche when you do the hand drawing, right? So, basically, all it's doing is, because when you're creating a floor plan, you're actually creating a horizontal section of a room, right? So whenever you create a section of something, you want to kind of show what's being cut, and usually that's going to have a fill in it. So, like, you probably use steel all the time, right? The thin and thick, right? Was it like number 3 or 4?
Oh, I don't know. I don't use that, but I see it on the floor on the line.
Yeah. So for instance, like if we got a wide flange or an I-beam or whatever you want to call it. So if you have some sort of structural member like this, right? You guys have all seen something like this in the world, right? You'll usually have some sort of hatch pattern like this drawn in it, and that's just telling you in the building world that it's actually steel. So it's just different hatches. So like this one's concrete, right? Yeah, it's all about rendering your image so that somebody can associate that and they see, oh, okay, that's steel, right? Like in the building world, a contractor is going to always associate this with steel. Unless you tell them it's specifically something else. They're going to associate that one with concrete. We use that one for us. In my office, we use it for granite, for stone, for countertops and stuff like that. Because, you look at that and you understand that as being stone when it has that kind of hatch on there. So different offices, like I said, because we're not dealing with concrete, we're dealing with different materials. So we use different hatches just to help render our elevations a little more, because if you're just looking at a 2D drawing, a lot of times your clients, they're just like, well, they don't understand what's what and how it looks and this and that, without actually going into another program, throwing materials on there, rendering it all out, and then sending them a picture of it. This goes 1,000 miles. Like, it really helps a lot. People could say, okay, anywhere you see this type of fill, that's granite, right? If you have, like I said, we have a custom one where we use wood grain. That's wood grain. And it also helps us because some people want horizontal, especially now, horizontal versus vertical. You're able to do that a lot better. So, once we get into like I said, we're gonna do a presentation floor plan, which you're pretty much gonna be doing like solid pochane for your hatching and stuff like that. And then I'll probably have you guys do. I mean, I'll leave it up to you guys which way you want to do it, but I'll show you the two different kind of common practices. And then once we get into the construction, more the design development, you're going to really start seeing the hatches and what they mean. Because they got one in here for glass, they got one in for concrete, they got one for wood, they got one, all kinds of different, one for shingled roofing, you know what I mean, things like that. So hatching is a big part of it just because it renders information a lot more to clients, to builders, to even your estimators. Like if someone's estimating the plan, they know, okay, that's concrete, that costs this much square foot, this is how much I got to do. Most of the time, you're going to see hatch patterns in cuts, in section cuts and details and stuff like that. Some people will use them for presentation drawings and stuff like that. Like if you have carpet, they might use dots, and then if they have a different carpet, they may use lines and stuff like that. So that, like again, like if you see the squares overhead and you see that they're squares, you might reference that, okay, that's ceiling tile. You see it on the floor, you may say, oh, those are like 12 by 12 or 24 by 24 tiles. Exact stuff like that. So hatching becomes really important when you start to render stuff.
You can also specify like carpet tiles,
yeah.
The side that they want.
And usually you'll have a legend of some sort, especially on like a presentation drawing. You'll have a legend or something that kind of shows what's what and how. So let's see what else there is in hatch. Let me undo because I don't want to explode it. So I'm going to delete that one out so we can get back into a fresh one. So hatch, I'm going to pick the internal point. So we wanted associative. All right, yeah, I could pick that one. No, I can't. Yeah, I can. So if I pick this one over here too, so if I just pick another object and I pick internally, you have the option here to create separate hatches. I do this a lot just because sometimes when I would stretch one thing and it stretch the other, like they associate with each other, and this one may get kind of screwed up when I don't want it to be. Send behind boundary, all this is going to do is put the hatch behind the polyline. If not, it's going to be on top of it. So when you actually go to pick, you may be picking the hatch when you're trying to pick the polyline, and you can always edit it in draw order, or you can simply just set it here. Transparency is exactly that. You could change the transparency. So right now 0 is set to full print, and then if you do 50, it's gonna fade it a little bit. Yeah, so you see how it turns kind of gray. So when you actually print it, it's not gonna print it the full. Jeez, that's weird. Like I said, we have the patterns, or you could pick the solids or the gradients. For now, we're just gonna stick with patterns by layer. If you wanted your color to be something other than your layer, which we'll get into layers probably on Monday, I think, yeah, because we gotta start doing the title block. So if you wanted it to be something other than that, for instance, you always wanted your hatches to always be pink, you could set it to always be pink or magenta, whatever. Then there's the full array of colors. So in here, let's say, oh, I don't want to select this one. We could always hit remove, and then I could pick that point, and it'll actually remove it, right? No? Yes, no. That'll pick the boundary. Oh, I didn't remove it. Why is it not removing it? There it goes. Okay. Edit, enter. So if you're editing the hatch and you decide you don't want it to have that object be hatched like the rest of them, you can simply do that. So if you have, let's change that one to be that one. Oh, that one's exploded, huh? So we're gonna hatch. I'm gonna hatch the center of my eyeball now. So if I wanted to both of these hatches to be the same, match properties. Match properties works really similar to every other program in the world when you're matching properties. When you're in Word, if you want a font to be the same, you can match properties of one font to the other. In this case, we want the hatch to match the other. So now they're both the same pattern. So it's just you can always go in here and edit and go find the hatch that you want. Or if you know that's the one that I want, then you can simply match properties. The other way to do it without actually going to the hatch editor is the shortcut command MA. So you can see that it actually says match props, match prop. Let me get it up higher. Oops. A match prop. So what this is gonna do is, if these were two different, I could click here and then I could click that one, and it'll actually change that one to match. So if you, for some reason, one of them's a different color, different pattern, whatever, you want them to be the same, you can simply do match properties and it'll
Just put it in a command.
MA is the shortcut. It's over here too. This one here. Under properties here. This one. Match prop.
Property.
Yeah. So
Match
if
properties.
I change that one and I do match properties and I want both of them to be this, I'm going to select my source first and then I'm going to select the destination.
Do we use the current or use source satch?
It depends which one you want to do. So it depends which one you want to be, yeah.
So then you do like the original one.
Yeah. So the original one's gonna be the one that you're actually editing at the moment, and then if you do source, it'll be the one that's not being edited. But again, if you escape out of everything, match properties is still kind of in that similar location there.
Yeah.
So you could do that without actually going into the hatch editor.
So then it just says select source object. So that's the object.
So select your source. Select the one that you want to copy, and then select the one that you want to change. It's the best way I could explain it.
Destination.
Yeah. Source and destination. Cool. Hatch.
I copied and moved it and took it out of the box. That's interesting.
Huh?
I copied one and moved it. The hatch,
Yeah.
And took it out of the actual
Yeah.
rectangle.
Yeah. So that one is no longer going to be associated with that rectangle, though. So if I copy this one, right, and I copy it out,
Yeah.
this one is its own independent thing now. But if I stretch this one, it'll still stay. But this one, notice that one didn't change. Yeah. It's no longer associated with anything.
Hey, can we get the outer circle to be a different hatch?
Yeah. You mean like this?
Yeah, okay.
So I mean, you can start getting into all these different patterns. You actually be able to render different shapes and sizes and finishes. Hatches are really good for finishes, or cuts. Materials and cuts and stuff like that. There used to be a T-shirt that had like all the hatch patterns on it. Was it cadmonkey.com or something like that? I think. No, it's not there. Okay. All right, break time. If there's no questions, sorry. Questions? Break time. Okay.